No, thank you. Sleepy. Come back in an hour. Need sleepy. Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God!
It's now time for the Billy C Morning Show, part of the Billy C Boxing Network. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Morning Show. Today's show is being brought to you in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant located in beautiful St. Simons Island, Georgia. Check out his menu online, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. And by the way, you give him a call, you tell him how great he sounds on this show, and I'm sure he's going to throw you a cannoli. Check out his website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com. Today's show is also being brought to you in part by JKJ Boxing Magazine. Hey, man, it's for free. So what the hell are you waiting for? Get yourself a copy. All you got to do is visit our website, www.billycboxing.com, and click on the JKJ Boxing Magazine cover and sign up. Now, you could download it for free, or you could pay the postage and have the magazine delivered to your door so you can put it in your grubby little hands and read it. Joining me right now, as usual, my partner in crime, Sal, Rocky, Cenicola. What's up, brother?
Good morning, Billy. How are you, buddy?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. It looks like the weather's finally broke here. We have some decent weather. Something you're used to all the time, right?
I'll tell you, at least 10 months of the year, they have a little cold snap for about 4 to 6 weeks that I think is like our fall up north. But, yeah, it's pretty pleasant down here. Looks like a little rain today, but I don't think you're going to have to worry about snow anymore up there for a while.
Up here? You never know.
You never know.
You never know. But, hey, listen, some stuff going on today. I just wanted to get out there. First and foremost, we have a new poll question up on the website, www.billycboxing.com. Will Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather fight in a rematch? That's the poll question. Right now, before we went on live, it seems that most of the people feel that there will be a rematch. How about you, Sal?
You know, like you said that night that we saw the first fight, that it's all going to come to fruition, and I see it unfolding right before us. And I think if they're going to fight, as you and I discussed, it will be sometime later this year. And I think they're going to try and force that fight. It's too much money, and you got too many people that probably want to pay for it, even though I swore I wouldn't do so. I don't want to renege, but I'd like to see another effort here by Pacquiao, just to see if he could get through the defense of Mayweather.
Well, a lot of people feel that he really didn't have an injury, and that it was just part of his excuse. And, like you're saying, the same thing's going to happen. I kind of believe I couldn't stand the excuse, but I believe the guy had an injury. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was a big ploy. I mean, the fight wasn't, we all know that I think the last person finally woke up at Sal's restaurant and left. But, the thing is I believe that he was injured to some degree. I don't think he should have used it as an excuse, but, I hope he was injured. What do you think?
Well, I know a lot about rotator cuffs and fighting. And, I think even if he had the injury, I didn't see him carry the aggression, the smarts of cutting off the ring, the pursuit of trying to outthink his opponent and release some punches and look at doing the combinations that, of course, Manny Pacquiao has always been known for. And like I said to you the other day, what I have a hard time with now is Pacquiao, and that was maybe 5 or 6 years too late to occur. And what I mean by that is everybody remembers the Pacquiao of 5 years ago. And that's what they always expect to see is the Pacquiao of 5 years ago, the relentless warrior that would stand in a pocket, fire his guns, and make sure his opponent pays for their mistakes. I don't think that Pacquiao has been in the ring for a long time now. And so, again, we're all doing our emotional recall or pictures of, well, we know what Pacquiao's capable of, but, this is 5 years, 6 years later, and this is not the same fighter as that we have in our minds, possibly. So, I like I said, I'd see Mayweather Pacquiao fight. They fight 10 times. Mayweather's going to win 9, at least.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
No,
my humble opinion.
I mean, you're right. I wish this fight did take place, 5 years ago, the original fight, I should say. But
Yeah.
we'll have to wait and see.
I think it's going to happen, Bill. But, I don't think the result's going to be different, but I think it's going to happen.
Oh no, I think it's going to happen. I thought it was going to happen when the first fight happened. There's just too much money. Floyd's
Yeah.
all about the money, and
Yeah.
if he's going to fight again, he's going to try to make the maximum money. And think of it this way: this particular fight, would be up for bid, if, to any network. It's his 50th win, theoretically breaking Rocky Marciano's record. So there's a lot on the line.
There is a lot.
And I think it's going to happen. He's already starting to talk about it, and I knew it was going to happen. I said it. But
Right.
the other thing we're going to talk about a little bit later is the rematch between Tyson Fury and Wladimir Klitschko is set finally,
Yes.
July 9th to be exact. Yeah. So we'll talk about that. Listen, I got an email. And I want to read it while you're on the line. This is from my man, Joel. Billy Joe, he says, with Billy Joe Saunders out of his defense at the Copper Box Arena against Matt Bursak. And by the way, he injured himself. I'll talk about that a little bit later. He says the new replacement for the main event is Hughie Fury against Fred Cassie. I got to say, this is a solid step up and will provide Fury with his toughest test to date. Even though Cassie lost to Areola and Brazil, both those fights had questionable decisions and could have gone Cassie's way. Do you think with Cassie's tricky style, Fury can pass with flying colors, or he too will need the judges to give him the W, especially fighting in his home country? Fred Cassie, every time I hear his name, it reminds me of the Valiant Brothers with Classy Freddie Cassie, classy. But anyway, this guy is a journeyman fighter. He gave Chris Areola some trouble, and of course Dominic Brazil. But Dominic Brazil came back and won, and Dominic Brazil was an Olympian, and he should have beat Cassie. Areola has just, we've all watched him sink deeper and deeper into the abyss. So I don't know, are those two weaker than we thought, and Cassie just showing that how weak they are, or is it the other way around? Is Cassie a lot better than we think? As far as Hughie Fury's concerned, we'll see what happens. I think it's the same level fighter he's been fighting. For that to be the main event is tough. But let's get to the issue that you can comment on. Yet another fight that gets canceled because of an injury. Apparently, he hurt his hand, and he had to cancel the fight to move Hughie Fury into. Man, it's like I'm stumbling with words here. It's like I already had a few scotches, but Fury is now the main event. Saunders was the guy, Sal, who said he wants to fight Triple G, and then all of a sudden picked Matt Bursak, which is obviously nowhere near Triple G, and then he gets this injury. I don't know about you, but it seems like there's a hell of a lot of injuries in the sport of boxing today, where fighters just get a little problem and the fight is canceled. What's your thoughts on that? Being a fighter who fought through injuries, and in hindsight, do you feel that you were wrong, that you should have taken some time off, and maybe your performances would have been better? What's your thoughts on all of that?
Outside a broken hand or something else, I mean, we learned that, the old adage for us was, hey, the show's got to go on. You could have, we would have a cut maybe from sparring or prior fight. Yeah, it would heal up in 4 weeks usually. Um, we'd have our bruised knuckles from prior fight or something, and they'd hurt, but you'd still fight. You are kind of insensitive to your own pain. That's why you're a fighter, and unless it's a real excuse for it, by a doctor, some of these fighters pulling out because they had a bad haircut is a little bit, I don't know, a little bit sissy, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is.
there was
It's a
these-
lot of bit. It's
I
a lot.
had
It's a
stress
lot of
fractures.
bit,
I had
sissy.
shin splints. I had, the thing is this: my generation, few fighters ever enter the ring 100% because you get injuries during training. You pull a muscle here running, you hurt your hand. But I was 100% of what I had to do in the ring to get there. And like I said, it's just a different mentality, different mindset. We built our careers, we built our fights on being the toughest guy. So you shun away, you turn your face to pain. You don't, unless it's the doctor's order saying, hey, guess what? You got a stress fracture and it's going to get worse and worse. You do what you got to do, but you don't pull out of a fight for a little thing or make up an excuse or so.
Well, they don't do it. They don't do it in other sports. You
No.
got guys in football that rip their hamstring. They go back in the back room. They get a shot of cortisone, and they're out there. I've pulled a hamstring. I had a really bad hamstring tear. To this day, if I run, which if I don't die of a heart attack first, my hamstring will flare up. So. And how these guys get away with it, I don't know, but. Other sports tough it out, and it just seems like a sport like boxing, which, is a tough sport, they don't, But
No.
listen to what Amir Khan says. Now, Amir Khan is going to be fighting Canelo Alvarez concerning fights of today and the fights that don't happen. He says there's a lot of fights out there that don't happen because a lot of fighters don't basically have the balls to fight the fights. He says, with me taking this fight, referring to the Canelo fight, I'm hoping I'll inspire at least some other fighters to take big fights during their boxing careers. If you want to be remembered as a great fighter, you need to take the big fights. That's what boxing's all about. And that's one of the reasons I'm in boxing, because I want to be remembered as a great fighter. I want to achieve everything and fight the biggest fights during my career. One day when I leave, I don't want to have regrets on not having this fight, or I should have taken that fight, or I should have had that fight, etc. I love this. What's your thoughts?
Love it.
What?
Hello?
No, I said, what's your thoughts? And you said it so quick. I mean, give me your thoughts, damn it.
Because I'm like salivating here. I said, wow, that's a fighter. That's what we're looking for. That's the emotion. That's the mindset. That's the heart. That's the passion. You're there to fight. And you know what? I couldn't have said it any better. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm an instant fan of this guy just for that.
Yeah, Amir Khan. Hey, by the way,
And you know what? But I think Amir Khan, Canelo Alvarez, that could be a very big fight for both fighters. But Canelo Alvarez, I like him. I'm a big fan of Canelo Alvarez. But I think he's got to work on some more things before he really steps up. Like, I'm not ready to see Canelo Alvarez fight Triple G. I think Triple G will destroy him. But I definitely think that he's learning, he's growing. He's got to get off those feet and be able to punch side to side and be able to think out there. But I'm not going to go too much into it right now. But I love that saying, and I think it's beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. By the way, we will be back live on Tuesday. We are taking tomorrow and Monday just to wrap up a few final things. So today, we are not going to take any commercial breaks. So, hey, I just want to talk about a couple of the things. Triple G, one of your favorite fighters, was signed, sealed, and delivered yesterday, actually, that he has a multi-year deal in place to be a spokesperson for the Jordan brand. I like this because, I like when boxers, align themselves with corporate sponsorships, because it shows that, they think that the boxers that they're aligning themselves with are good for their brand, and so often we haven't seen so many. The only guy really was Manny Pacquiao. Before he made some comments, and the guy from the Subway commercials. Prior to that, we didn't see anybody from boxing since Sugar Ray Leonard and Mike Tyson for the soda company. So I think it's good. I'm just wondering if they're going to have Triple G in the movie theater now, ripping the tag out of somebody's T-shirt, and watching the tag run away. That ought to be a funny one if they did it.
Yeah, let's see. His fans are that fast. His hands are that fast.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you ever saw the commercial where Michael Jordan's sitting in the movie theater and the tag is bothering. Hey, listen, I've been ripping, cutting tags out of my shirts ever since I was a kid. And yeah, I can't stand it. So when they invented tagless shirts, I love it, and they did a whole little bit on that. But anyway, I hope that is good. Hey, before we went on air. You and I were talking about some stuff, and one of the things that came up was Adrian Broner. And, he's sitting in a can right now for his reckless driving. He got sentenced to 10 days. And it seems like they're really trying to use this as a PR move. They're saying he's incarcerated for 10 days. He's in a community jail for 10 days because he had a drunken driving arrest where he was put on probation for any type of moving violation would land him, in the slammer for a couple of days. And he got served 10 days, got sentenced to 10 days that he's serving right now. And he released a statement yesterday asking his fans, you're going to love this one, asking his fans to send him letters while he's in jail, and he's got the whole thing and everything else. I mean, and by the way, this has nothing to do with the felony and robbery charge he's facing. But I mean, come on, do you think that this is a ploy to get people to see how many people he can get to send letters? I'm picturing that nobody gives a crap that Adrian Broner is sitting in the slammer, and he's saying, "I want letters." He's gonna be, "Is there any letters for me? Is there any letters?" Nope, no. Oh wait, here's one. Here's a book of coupons for you that everybody gets. I mean, what do you think of him asking for his fans to send letters?
You want to know what I think?
Yeah, I do.
Hey, Adrian, forget about it.
Oh my God, crazy stuff.
I'll tell you, man. Tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. Why don't you?
Yeah, no, he's crazy. He's crazy. Speaking of arrests, I don't know if you remember Ike Iwabuchi. He was a really, really promising heavyweight and had some issues. He finally got arrested and did some serious time. This is no Floyd Mayweather Country Club month. This is no Adrian Broner 10 days in the community jail. This guy did serious time. He was locked up for some crazy stuff, some sexual abuse and kidnapping a woman and really, really crazy stuff. And was put in jail in 1998. And this guy was top of the game in the heavyweight division. He's 20-0. Well, anyway, he finally did his time, and he got let out late last year, and he resumed his boxing career. He's now 43 years old, and he was supposed to actually be on the Timothy Bradley Manny Pacquiao undercard, which he wasn't, and came out yesterday that he was arrested again, okay? Now, here's the thing. Because of his sex-related crimes, he was put on a lifetime probation in the state of Arizona. So where does he go? He goes to Arizona, and he did not follow the probation law, which was supposed to he was supposed to start a treatment program. They're defining it as a treatment program, probably some post-jail treatment program that he didn't sign up for. So guess what? He got arrested and he's back in jail. Well, what's your thoughts on a guy who serves almost 20 years in jail? More than 20 years in jail, and he can't follow the dotted line here.
Well, you think if you're spending 20 years in jail, you're gonna pray and look for the daylight one day. And when you do see that daylight, you're gonna probably want to do and follow that dotted line. Everything you need to do to not go back to that little square house. And I don't know. Boy, I'll tell you what. That's a hard call. All you had to do is be cognizant of what you have to do and do it. That's it.
Right. I mean, he hasn't. I misspoke. I think he's been. He was in jail for about 15 years, 10 years. I mean,
You know what?
but
That's
still a long time.
enough to think about ever wanting to return.
Oh yeah. No. Hey, listen. Golden Boy announced that they're on May 6th. They're doing a boxing event in Vegas at an outdoor venue, and it's going to be for free. And now I think that's good and bad. The main event, which is actually going to be televised, the main event is Peter Pet. The way you pronounce it, it's not spelled like that, but it's Peter Petrov. He won the Boxino tournament, and he's taken on a former world title challenger in Marvin Quintaro. And Pablo Cesar Cano is also on that card, fighting Alan Sanchez. So a couple of good fights. But here's the thing, Sal. It's going to be for free. All right, they're letting all the fans in for free. And I learned something. I learned something once. I learned something with sports and especially boxing. And one of the worst things you can do is give a ticket away. And, I realized that you could look at it as two ways. You could say, oh, well, you're trying to get the fans in and create a fan base and you got TV revenue anyway, et cetera, et cetera. But when you give a ticket away, what you create, the fact is, what you create is a fan that'll never pay for a ticket. They get something. Basically, what they do is they devalue their own product by giving that ticket away. It's like in your restaurant, Sal. If all of a sudden you had free pizza for everybody, well, maybe in your case it's different. But let's say a place gives away free chicken parms, and people eat them. They're going to eat them. They're not going to really comment on them because they got it for free. But to get them to buy it after that might be tricky. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And, there's two sides to that, Bill, and we can make an argument for both sides. I follow your thought there with the free tickets. And, we want to look at a mild analogy. Look, when I had the Mayweather Pacquiao fight at the restaurant, we had only a certain few. A bunch of celebrities came. We had all the fighters. We had a lot of athletes. We had Plexco Burris. We had Michael Mora. We had everybody. It was crazy, but we only had a few paying customers because we charged accordingly because that was a very expensive fight for me to bring in. And then when I said, okay, the next fight when we did the, I think it was the Triple G fight, and we did that fight. I didn't charge anybody at the door. Well, I had my greatest night. We had to tell people we're full. We can't do anything more. It's a fire hazard right now if we let one more person through that door. And they bought the food, they drank the beer, they had the liquor. We had a great night of revenue. And I know that's not the same analogy, but I would hope that if you gave a free event away, especially to a good venue, maybe it would give people the incentive to understand the value of what they're looking at and being benefited with, to come back and say, hey, you know what? It's worth $50 to do this. I like the time I had earlier for free. I'm willing to pay it. I don't know. That's the two sides of the story. Because, yes, if you give it away, people are going to say, hey, I want it for free. It depends on the mindset and the people and the incentive and the reward,
Well, you get spoiled, like I look at it as like myself, right? If somebody came up to me and said, and let's say they really, they spent some money and they want to take me to a boxing event, and they said, hey, Bill, here, I got a pair of tickets. Let's go to this boxing event. Not that I'm not appreciative, but I would be like, where are the seats? Oh yeah, they're the ninth row. Ninth row, man. I spent $500 a piece for them. They're the ninth row. I'd go, ninth row. Why? Because I'm spoiled. I'm used to sitting in press row. I'm used to I'm used to I'm used to leaning on the apron, the ring apron. I mean, not that I'm not appreciative, but you know what I'm saying? So I created. I mean, the sport has created that attitude towards me. Not that I'm snooty or nothing like that. It's just what I'm used to, and it's the same thing. Like I had season tickets for the New York Jets. And I was on the 50-yard line. Somebody would say, "Hey, let's go to a game. Where's your seats?" "Oh, I got good seats. They're up close, but it's in the end zone. Forget about it. I don't want to go and look in the end zone. I mean, come on, I'll watch it on TV. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's the same thing. I worked. I was an assistant GM. Actually, I got the sweatshirt on. I was the assistant GM for a pro baseball team, the Adirondack Lumberjacks. It was an independent league between Double and AAA, and that's where I actually learned that. It was me who made the, recommendation. It was my idea. I said, hey, why don't we give some tickets away and we'll make the money on concessions and everything else. Well, the owner of the team almost flew across the table at my suggestion and it was like grabbing me by the throat. He's going, you never give a ticket away. You create a fan that'll never pay. And I'm like, geez, calm down, and, after I thought about it and after I, got into doing other things, I realized that he was 100% correct, so I don't know. But speaking of fights, we touched on it at the beginning of the show, Tyson Fury, Wladimir Klitschko, the rematch is confirmed that will be taking place on July 9th. It's a Saturday at the Manchester Arena in England. Tyson Fury will be home. He said this, and I quote, "I'm thrilled to get this fight on July 9th in Manchester. I'm the best heavyweight in the world, and the rest are imposters to my titles. Wow. I'm coming for all of them once I've dealt with the Klitschko a second time. The only man that could beat Klitschko was me. What I've got can't be taught. You've either got it or you don't. How you beat robots is you do unorthodox things. I'm expecting a totally different fight. He's going to have to come over here and fight this time. It's going to be a slugfest." I think he's kind of right, Sal. I think that Wladimir Klitschko will want to fight him in a more aggressive way. And I think that that's the way Klitschko can win that fight against Tyson Fury. And I also agree with Tyson Fury that the way and reason why he beat Klitschko in the first fight is because he was doing some unorthodox things. Although a lot of people don't like Tyson Fury, I think he's kind of accurate with his statements right here.
Tell you what, I watched that fight and I saw how unorthodox Tyson Fury could be. And I think it definitely bewildered or confused a little bit with Klitschko and what he was expecting. And there's two schools here. Sometimes, like in a Mayweather-Pacquiao fight, I'm sorry to keep referring back to that, but I think Mayweather has Pacquiao's number. I don't think Tyson Fury has Klitschko's number just yet. I think Klitschko, even though he's an older fighter, he's been around, I think he's capable of learning from that fight and not being caught off guard and surprised and not knowing how to handle that. I think he'll fight a different fight than the first fight with Tyson Fury. And, I think Tyson Fury, if he doesn't change his style, and if Klitschko goes to school, Tyson Fury fights with his hands down, one hand's over here, he's running up there, he's moving here. He's a big guy, and big guys are very, very powerful. And but they could be awkward, and they could be, if he commits to one punch and the hand's down, it takes a little longer for that hand to come up and block. So I think if Klitschko's corner and his team gets precise with the combinations, the punches, the slips, the moves, the blocking, the parrying of the punches, and getting in the pocket, cutting off the ring, I'll tell you what, it's going to be a good fight, and I would pay for that fight. And I think Klitschko does have a good chance to upset and beat Fury this time. And I normally don't say that. I say once a fighter fights and wins, normally he's got his number. I don't see it this way.
Nah, and the thing is that Klitschko is a robot, just as Tyson refers to, and he just doesn't have that killer instinct like his brother did. But at the end of the day, he's got way more power than Tyson Fury, and if he's aggressive the way he fought Pulev, Kubiat Pulev, he's going to knock out Tyson Fury. So
I could see that, Billy.
Yeah.
I could see that. So I think it'll be a good fight.
the WBC, I'm always critical with the WBC because, I think that they are boxing. And although I get it, and I understand why, because the sanctioning bodies, they separate themselves from each other. This is one of the main problems we have in the sport of boxing today, Sal, is all of the division. You got fighters that only fight with this promoter. You got fighters that only fight on that network. You got fighters that are part of this sanctioning body, and they could be the best fighter in the world, and they're not even ranked at the other sanctioning body because they're not playing nice. Well, the WBC has a tendency to put out a lot of press releases and a lot of news and make it like they are running boxing. And for the most part, they're a smoke screen, and a lot of people fall for it. And at the end of the day, the WBC belt happens to be one of the more valuable ones, at least as far as the fighters are concerned. But they issued a statement. They're having in the junior middleweight division, which they call their super welterweight division, they are going to have some fights because, here's their statement. They said, "We are extremely disappointed by the non-compliance of several boxers who had committed to participate in our process. It has caused delays and disrespect to the process, which was regarded to be very interesting for the boxing world." Now, what they're referring to is fights that they, ordered. They so-called ordered, and the fighters basically said, "Bafangu, I am fighting that guy. He's too tough, or I'm not enough money, or whatever." And now the WBC is making it like they ruined the sport of boxing. Not good. So they made some changes. No, the number one ranked contender, Jermell Charlo, is fighting John Jackson. That's going to be on a fight that we just talked about yesterday. The winner will become the WBC World Super Welterweight champion and must make 2 mandatory title defenses. So they're going to be telling them who the winner of this fight fights. They have the WBC Silver champion, Charles Hatley, is ranked number 4. He's the first mandatory contender after the winner of the Jackson-Charlo fight. And Demetrius Andrade and Willie Nelson, who's fighting who's also fighting pretty soon, I think on Showtime. The winner of that fight is the second one. As much as I like fighters to be forced to fight the next guy, my big hang-up with this system, Sal, is that years ago, and I hate to keep always going back to years ago, back in the day.
Well, that's our reference point, Bill.
I know,
that's what we know.
But I mean, young people today, they just look at us as old guys, living in the past. But the truth of the matter is it was a simple formula. When you were a fighter, you turned pro. You gain a following and you become a prospect. So you go from turning pro to a prospect. Now, once you're a prospect, you got promise. Now people start watching. And then as a prospect, you develop and fight better fights and get better and better and better and become a contender, right?
Contender.
Now you're a contender. And then once you're a contender, basically the way it used to work is you start fighting contenders that are above your level. Yeah. So that you move up that ladder, and ultimately, in a perfect world, you would rise to that number one contender spot, and that guy is the guy who gets to fight the champion of that division. Well, that's not what happens. We got number 10 guys fighting number 3 guys that, and whether they belong at those rankings or not, that's a whole nother ball game. Because remember, these are only being ranked by one sanctioning body, and then this one fights that one. It's like. What the hell? What is there really a system?
That's a good question, Bill, because, you'll see even in the generation that I'm so fond of, that I think was one of the greatest eras of boxing, there were people that popped up in the top 10 that found themselves there from some obscure country or this and that because they had a good record or because they were grooming him to fight. As I remember the game, a champion had to make a title defense against a number 1 ranked contender every 6 months. And in between, he could choose anybody in the top 10 to fight for the title, defend his title. I mean, that's the world that I remember, and I know it's changed. And I know, who's making the call when it come to these rankings, and how is it followed? It's a good question. How long ago they changed those rules?
What rules?
Well, with the WBC, how they're moving up the everything that you were saying earlier.
No, they're doing that now because
Yeah.
they had ordered some fights, and fighters either got better opportunities or didn't want that fight or whatever. But
I was just seeing
it
if they
goes
didn't take
goes
the
back.
rule
Yeah,
book
but
out of the RNC.
it goes back to what we were saying in the beginning of the show. The fighters have no balls. If they see that they can't win a fight or the fight might be too tough, they follow the old Mayweather, cherry pick, pick the weakest fight you can for the most money, and they pass by. And it's the sanctioning body's own fault that they are the ones that devalued their own belts. Boxing is becoming a joke, Sal.
And you and I have talked about this along with John, and the days of boxing on that level that really those belts mean something. When I was there as a pro, they just recently introduced the IBF. It was always the WBC and WBA, and they were credible. And then the IBF earned its credibility. But then it slowly crept up for the money and the power and the financial gains of promoters, other designated world sanctioning bodies, and they watered down the system.
Well, you got fighters like Triple G who want to fight everybody. No one wants to fight him, and then what do the fans say? Oh, he hasn't fought anybody.
Yeah, I know. Well, but some of the fans they're looking at a rough reference point too. But I'll tell you what you said about Triple G. I think Anthony Joshua. I think some of these top fighters are going to be some of the future of what boxing, or sustain the level of interest and regain the respect. These are great fighters. They want to fight.
You know what's sad? You start
What's
thinking of great fighters, and you go Anthony Joshua, and
Well, I mean, you know what?
You
No,
can't even
Anthony Joshua-
think.
let
You
me-
can't even
let me
think of
clarify
him.
that. He's a great. I think he's a good human being. I
No,
think
but
he's
that's
a
not
good
what I
role
mean.
model.
I
think he's
agree.
going to be groomed, and I think he's a tough guy. He's got a lot of potential to be a big figure in the heavyweight division for a long time if he's handled properly.
No, I agree with you. That's not what I meant. What I meant was that they're not. Nobody knows anybody
Nobody
anymore.
knows them,
Yeah,
I know.
I mean, the
That's
thing is,
true.
you start thinking, oh, this guy's going to be real good, and all of a sudden, two names pop into your head, and you can't. You go blank because no, these fighters. No, but these fighters don't. They're just not fighting. You're saying, like you just alluded to, and I hope the fans caught that. You said, oh, when, in your day, you would fight, win a title, and you'd have 6 months to defend it. Well, nowadays, fighters, if they fight twice a year, that's good. If they fight 3 times a year, they're winning Fighter of the Year award for being so busy. I mean, come on,
He's busy.
It's a joke.
What about? I heard what you were talking about yesterday with the Rocky Marciano and Muhammad Ali, and I think that was genius. I loved it. I was listening to the whole show yesterday with Larry Hazard. It was a great show. But you look at some of these guys like Jake LaMotta. They're fighting every other week. They're just putting the ice bag on their cuts or their swollen eyes, and they're back in the ring.
Charlie Burley, you talk about all these injuries. A fighter, has a sniffle. A guy gets an ingrown toenail. Another guy, hurts his arm a little bit, and the fight's postponed. And you're talking about these aren't just they're big money fights that they're walking away from. Charlie Burley had very fragile hands. And he would break his hands hitting a heavy bag in training, and he would put a broken hand into the gloves and fight for a fight night. To me, those days are gone, Sal. And I'm not saying. Listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it was smart to do that.
No.
But the truth of the matter is at some point in time, you got a tough. You're in a tough sport. You're in a mano to mano sport. And to find excuses to get out of fights or to cherry pick is just I can't say it any
No,
other way, but
no.
it's sad, you know.
It's sad. It is sad. But I'll tell you, you asked me earlier. There was one fight I do regret that I went through with where I did have an injury, and we talked off air about it many times, and I'm not going to go into too much detail right now.
No, we're gonna in your book though.
We're going to in the book, but my last fight, which was I believe February the 6th of 1988, before I made my comeback, it was a co-feature event in Atlantic City Convention Center, and that was Vinny Pazienza fighting Greg Haugen for the championship. Vinny lost that night, but I fought the co-feature, and I was fighting Louis Lamelli, and we were fighting, and Louis Lamelli at the time was ranked number 1 in the world, and we were going to fight for the title elimination to go against Pernell Whitaker. Now, Lamelli was a taller, thinner guy. Well, not thin. I mean, he was a big guy. I mean, he probably walked around about 165 pounds, and he would get down to lightweight, which we fought. And that's the funny thing. He didn't make the weight, but he kept going at it, and an hour and a half later, he made the weight. So that goes into another story of what yesterday used to be in Fight Game versus today, catch weights and all this other stuff. But anyway, so about 10 days before that fight, I was sparring a heavyweight, foolishly, in the gym in Patterson, getting ready. Artie Cavalier, the brother of Paul Cavalier, old fighter, was my trainer for this fight. And he was part of the Duva chain there, Duva establishment. And I was doing a style here where I would hit with a right hand, feint a left jab to the head, come down, bam, and right to the belly, then come out and do an overhand right to the chin. Well, I caught this heavyweight with such an overhand right that I knocked him out. And he fell right on top of me as I was in a crouched position. And all of a sudden in the gym, you heard a pop. And my hamstring literally ripped. I was in such pain, I fell right down, grabbing it. It was turning black and blue. I went to my sports doctor, Dr. Alan Levy, who saved my life one time. We'll talk about that one day. But he looked at my leg. He said, "Sal, you can't fight. This is torn. You're not going to be able to fight, and you got to fight next week." I said, "No, I know. I got to fight in about 10 days." I went back to the gym the next day, told Artie Cavalier. He called the I don't want to tell you who he called, but he called.
I know who he called.
He called. And because, he said, "Hey, Sal just came from Dr. Alan Levy. He's got a black and blue, and he can't go through with this fight. Could we postpone it? Could we do something?" Well, on the other end of the phone, he was told, "Tell Sal if he doesn't go through with this fight, it's the last opportunity he's going to ever get for the big time or whatever heck. And he'll never get another chance again. And he's got to fight. And tell him to put makeup on his black and blue so the commissioners don't really see what's going on." And sure enough, I said, "Well, Jesus, thanks for telling me how I'm going to go through this ring and how I'm going to last this fight with limping like a lame duck." And sure enough, I went in that ring. And I think I even won the first round, but I tried to do a right hand, and my leg gave out in the second. I don't want to go there. But that's the one fight that I wish I didn't go through with. But I did, because as I was told by the powers that may be, it's not your night, kid, but you got to go through the fight.
Yeah, it's just a different mindset, and I can't. It bothers me, but let's get to some scores here in Major League Baseball. My Mets won. They finally beat the Marlins 2-1. Angels topped the A's 5-1. The Mariners over the Rangers 4-2. The Red Sox beat the Orioles 4-2. The Orioles suffer their first loss of the season. They're now 7-1. The Nationals, they blanked the Braves 3-0. Braves are winless at 0-8, one of two winless teams in the majors. Phillies 2, Padres 1. The Tigers beat the Pirates 7-3. The Blue Jays beat the shit out of your Yankees 7-2.
Damn!
The Indians topped the Rays 4-1. The Cubbies, who I think are going to have a fine year, they beat the Reds, who also have a really good team, 9-2. The White Sox shut out the other winless team, the Twins, 3-0. Twins joined the Braves at being 0-8. The Royals topped the Astros 4-2. The Brewers over the Cardinals 6-4. Rockies 10, Giants 6. And the Dodgers beat the Diamondbacks 3-1. That's Major League Baseball. Over in the NBA, the Celtics topped the Heat 98-88. Raptors over my hapless Nets 103-96. The Hornets 117 over the Magic 103. Pistons 112. Cavaliers 110. Wizards 109. Hawks 98. The Bulls 115-105. The Spurs 96-91 over the Mavericks. The Rockets beat the Kings 116-81. The Pacers beat the Bucks 97-92. The Timberwolves beat the snot out of the Pelicans 144-109. What a beating that is. The Warriors 125 to 104 of the Grizzlies. They set the NBA record for best season. 73 wins, only 9 losses. They break the Bulls mark. So congratulations to the Warriors for going down in NBA history. The Suns beat the Clippers 114-105. The Trailblazers 107-99 over the Nuggets. And in his final NBA game, Kobe Bryant, who's had, some people, sometimes they love him, sometimes they hate him. He scored 60 points in his final game. He had 60 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists to lead the Lakers over the Jazz 101-96. And you know what, Sal? I think people are going to remember Kobe Bryant as a great basketball player. This was a guy that's, came to the league at a young age. He's been there for a long time. He's had his ups and downs. He was a diva for a while. But at the end of the day, you just can't deny his athleticism and his playing ability. I mean, the guy is a first ballot Hall of Famer for
I
sure.
know. He wanted to go out a winner, and look, he rose to the occasion, put on his best.
And he had listen, they have no team behind him either. But
no.
In the NHL playoffs, Lightning beat the Red Wings 3-2. The Penguins beat the Rangers 5-2, and in overtime, the Blues beat the Blackhawks 1-0. So that's all the scores. There. Now you had some politics you wanted to talk about a little bit, huh?
I don't know. Hey, whoa!
Everybody just
they never discuss politics and religion in public and on the radio. But I don't mind telling people I'm a very conservative Catholic boy.
Well, I tell you what. All the listeners just shut off, But
I know what I do.
But what's on your mind today, man?
Speak my mind. Well, yeah, I'll tell you. When you were talking about the WBC and these rules, I was going on with maybe they took it out of the playbook of the RNC, changing the rules as they did for the presidential the nomination process for our candidate. But the politics today are a different world, Bill. I'll tell you. It's almost like I'm looking who's going to be the best of the bad to vote and pull that lever. And as I said, I think the whole process to watch this with the Republican candidates, it's been I think damaging.
Well, I what I can't stand is how the media is actually driving what people. The thing about listen, anybody can have their own opinion about who they like, who they don't like, etc., etc. But what bothers me is all of a sudden you'll see the media start, bringing, like for example, with Donald Trump, right? Now, of course, Donald Trump has said some crazy, outrageous things, but the media twists it, and they make it seem like you're an idiot if you think, if you were going to vote for Donald Trump. You're not educated, you're this, you're that. That's basically the perception, and it's finally working. Listen, I agree with you. I think that we have terrible choices, but I know one person that should not get in there, no matter what, is Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is a criminal.
I know.
I mean, she really should. She belongs in jail. And this is a person that is eerily may win this election very easily, and it's. I just don't understand how. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to hear from all the women's activists. It's not because she's a woman. I would, hey, I have no problem. I would welcome a female president in the United States, just not Hillary Clinton. She's awful. She's awful. She's terrible. And she would. I don't think she would be a good leader, especially with the other countries. Listen, you were talking about it off the air. We're being laughed at by other countries. We're not a power anymore militarily. Not even business world, not even financial. Values of dollars. I mean, we're just. It's everything that we never thought would happen is happening.
Unfolding before our eyes. And you know what, Bill? What's sad about it? The people that take their head out of the sand have witnessed and watched this. And unfortunately, like Paulie would say, "Oh, you are part of the unsilent majority," and we've watched this. It's a trickle-down effect, one thing after another, that just dismantles our great nation one by one. We're still the greatest country in the world. But I'll tell you what, we've got to get our heads to be thinking and to be moving in a direction that's going to preserve our freedom, that's going to preserve our way of life, that's going to preserve our American culture. And that's not being looked at and considered with the politics as usual. And you got both, it's like the WBC and the WBA. You got the DNC and the RNC. And when you look at Donald Trump, who I would vote for, and you look at his process and what he's trying to do, and then you look at the RNC being blatant as far as not standing for the betterment of who's going to win this nomination, but let's force Trump out and make it harder for him. It's a process that I don't think it's really doing justice to the whole political system. And of course, I think the person that should be our president is going to be the one that looks at our country, that wants to spend our money in the areas that we need to look at for our defense, for our own preservation, to look at the seniors, to look at the education of the future, to look at other things. Like I often said, you give me a pie chart where I could elect where I want my money to go in taxes, and I'm sure I could choose the percentage points of where I want my money to go. And I bet 100% you will see the majority of the public not fund half these other programs. I saw what was it? I saw a program the government's funding where they were seeing a shrimp walk on a treadmill. I mean, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars do you want to waste to find a shrimp walking on a treadmill? It's unbelievable.
He was probably
crazy.
He was probably in that shrimp was in
he
really
was in training.
He was in really good shape. I'll tell you that.
That damn shrimp could keep going, man.
And the only I want a pizza pie chart. Can you make me a pizza pie chart? Listen, this is what I think. I think that Sal Rocky Cenicola should get on the ballot right now. What do you guys think? They're going to follow you, Sal.
Hey, man, that's great. I'd like to be the first Italian president. I'll tell you what.
Oh, listen, you got a standing ovation.
Hey, man, I like that. I want a president that's going to look out for the best interest of the American citizens of the United States of America, that's going to look out for our future, our sanctity, our culture, that's going to make sure that we are the number one power in the world. And we're going to be, we need a Ronnie Reagan. That's what we need.
Well, if we get Hillary Clinton, all we're going to get is...
I thought Europe was a country. I don't know what they mean.
What show is it? That's about all we're going to get, right? But anyway, hey, Sal, we're going to pack it in a little early today. So I'm going to keep you on the line because I want to give everybody, this.
This day in boxing history.
On this day, first of all, today's boxing history is being brought to us by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now. Where all good books are sold, you can pick up a copy literally right now by visiting Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is a must-read. I know Sal, oh, that's right, you never read it. But anyway, on this day...
Wait for my autographed copy.
On this way.
I'm going to go to a copy. I'm going to go to Amazon.com and I'm going to buy it.
How many copies? I autographed you one. I gave you two. One. So I think John walked out with one. And then didn't I give you another one the next time?
They don't wind up in my hands. That's how popular.
Well,
the book
whoever's
is.
got the- whoever's got the-
staff or some other people have taken it and read it, and I've heard some great things about the book.
Well-
I gotta buy. I'm gonna go to Amazon.
Well,
I'm gonna buy
whoever
my own
whoever got the
and then
last
I'm
one.
gonna come up to the Hall of Fame when I see you next, and you're gonna sign it in
Well,
autograph.
the last, hey, listen, the last one, whoever took that one says to Sal Cenicola, the best pizza in the world. I mean, but who else wants a book signed like that except for you, But anyway, on this day, April 14th in 2007, Ruslan Shigaev wins a 12-round decision over Nikolai Valuev to win the WBA World Heavyweight title. It took place in Germany. On this day in 1914, no, Sal Cenicola wasn't born, but Jack Dillon wins a 12-round decision over Badal Levinsky to win the vacant World Light Heavyweight title. It took place in Montana. On this day in 1979, Victor Galindez knocks out Mike Rossman in the 10th round to regain the WBA World Light Heavyweight title. It took place in New Orleans. On this day in 2001, B-Hop wins a 12-round decision over Keith Holmes to retain his IBF and win the WBC World Middleweight title. It took place in the city, New York City, that is. On this day in 1931, young Jack Thompson knocks out Tommy Freeman in the 12th round to win the World Welterweight title. It took place in Cleveland. On this day in the year 2000, Gutty Esperadas wins an 11th round technical decision over Luisto Espinoza to win the vacant WBC featherweight title, and took place in Mexico. And on this day, April 14th in 2007, Edgar Socha wins a 12-round decision over Brian Valoria to win the vacant world flyweight title, junior flyweight title, and that took place in Texas. Sal, as we pack it up for the week, because we're not going to be doing a live show tomorrow or on Monday, do you have any final thoughts for anyone?
Oh, yeah. I got, there was a lot that I wrote notes down here. We had a lot of things to talk about in politics. We'll save for next week. But, one thing I was so excited to see, and I want to talk to you and John off air about it. Do you know that Bob Arum is planning on a Roberto Duran and Julio Cesar Chavez exhibition fight on the Terrence Crawford and the Victor Pastel undercard?
Somebody else asked me about that, and you know what I think. I
want to do an exhibition. That's what I'm alluding to.
I know.
Get anybody. Let's get Vinny Pazienza. Let's get anybody out there that wants to do an exhibition. Let's do a nice exhibition.
Well, here's the thing.
Mancini, come on.
Throw
back to the old.
Years ago, fighters used to do exhibitions.
We did.
Jack Johnson used to do a lot of them. Even the late great Jem Mace did them up until he was 70. They got away from it when the commissions, came down with rules and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if they're going to force these guys to wear headgear or whatever. But I know one thing. Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. and Roberto Duran, even as an exhibition, Sal, I think we're going to see two guys really trying to win the fight. I don't think we're going to be seeing a couple of guys just, going through the motions, laughing and having fun. I think they're going to go in there and try and take each other's heads off. What do you think?
I think so. They're warriors. They'll probably do a smile in between and keep it light on some level. But when they get in the trenches, these guys know how to fire the guns. And it's muscle memory and it's physical memory. They will definitely have some good exchanges. Now, I will tell you this. In my humble opinion, and I had the opportunity to spar with him many times, and I learned a lot from Roberto Duran. I loved him. He was one of my idols as a kid growing up. And I think as a pound for pound, as a lightweight, Roberto Duran was one of the greatest fighters ever as a lightweight. He could do it all. He could box, he could slip, he could move, he could punch as a lightweight. I know when he got heavier, he definitely put on the pounds and definitely lost some of his ability to be as agile as he was. And the competition was stiff that he went up against. But I'll tell you what, I think it's exciting. Julio Cesar Chavez, I do see also excitement from there, and I think he's a little smaller than Duran physically, but it should still be a very, very good exhibition, as they will call it. But I see two warriors looking to create a little thunder for the old, as Sally would say in The Godfather. Hey, Tom, can you get me off the hook for old time's sake?
For old time's
so I think for old time's sake, these guys are going to go out there and put on a nice exhibition, a nice show, and maybe teach some of these young kids today of what fighting's about.
Yeah, well, I talked to, and this is the worst thing to talk to you about, but I'll leave you.
Oh,
with,
baby.
I'll leave it with. I'll leave
Oh,
it with.
baby, I'm
you.
getting excited.
Yeah,
I'm going to go
and,
run right
it,
now.
and it's something we talked about before, but in certain cases, with certain types of fighters, as long as they're healthy and everything else, I think, and in lieu of how we've learned to be able to take care of our bodies and not only fitness but also diet and stuff like that, I think it may be time. And I don't know if the fans would support it, but I know a lot of the older fighters would. But maybe it's time to develop that senior league we talked about at one time.
We have talked about it, and I'm all for it.
And this is no
professionals making a comeback over 25 years and 66 days. I'm all for it.
But they gotta fight other guys that are their age, and something like this is like you can't have a guy 40 years old fighting a 60-year-old, so it would be a little tricky. But anyway,
I'm willing to do it. As a 60-year-old, when I reach 60, I'm willing to do it, but I know what you're saying. Go ahead.
No, I know. But anyway, keep
I
that.
fight anybody. Put me in, coach.
Keep that in the back of your mind, and
I will. We got to talk about that.
We'll look forward to our next show. Just a programming note: we will not be here tomorrow like we usually are, and we won't be here Monday. I know we did the same thing last week, but we will be back Tuesday morning, and you'll hear from my man Sal and myself, and hopefully the infamous Jeremy C. can find his way back to the studio. I mean, he's bad news, that guy, But anyway, aside from that, Sal, you have yourself a good weekend and all that happy stuff. And I want to leave everyone with this last thing. So until we, this is what I want to leave.
And I want to thank everybody. And thank you, Bill. I enjoyed this show very much, and I appreciate it. I look forward to next week.
Sounds good, my man. And for everybody else, I want to leave you with this. Don't forget to tune in Tuesday morning, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.